Hey, Josh Rubin from East West Healing and Performance. Today, I've had a request for a long time to do a video on increased sweating, or what we like to call hyperhidrosis, another big word. All it means is increased sweating. Now, this does affect a high amount or population in the United States or everywhere around the world, including myself at one point. And most people get it either on the armpits, specific types, areas of the body, I should say. A lot of people get it in their hands and feet only. Some people, it's where they'll sweat from here up. Some people sweat just in certain areas. Now, what does increased sweating mean? Sweating is a normal physiological aspect of our body, and our body uses it to actually cool down the systems. Now, let's rewind it a little, and I've talked about this in many videos. You have a part of your body called the autonomic nervous system. Now, you have two parts to that, the sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic, books always like to say running from a lion. It's our state where we're kind of on alert. We're fighting or flighting, stepping off a curb and falling, getting in a fight, being stressed about finances, working out, all these different things. And we should activate this nervous system, this part of the nervous system, because this helps us release specific hormones to help fight the stressors so we don't have inflammation, so we can regulate blood pressure, regulate blood sugar. Now, it's finding that balance. It's not being in that sympathetic state all the time. The other part is the parasympathetic. This is our rest and digest. This is when we're kind of relaxing, reading, resting, eating, things like that. Now, there are people that are doing those activities and are actually in a sympathetic state. So it's finding a balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic. When you're in a sympathetic state, more blood rushes away from the gastrointestinal system and the reproductive organs, so you get constipated. You get sluggishness in the GI system. The food just sits in the GI system. You can't get an erection. You have infertility, on and on and on. So you can have lack of libido. The thing is, you want to find a balance. And when you're parasympathetic, more blood rushes to the GI system, to the reproductive system. So a lot of people say you don't want to go this way, you don't want to go the other. It's finding that balance. If you get pushed out of the parasympathetic state because you're working out or whatever you're doing, you're stressed. Any stress of any sort, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, chemical, nutritional, on and on and on. That's going to push you sympathetic. The goal is to find things in your life that you can adapt, things that you can do to adapt to this, or maybe things that you can do to modify it. Find that balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic. You don't want to be too parasympathetic and meditate every day, 24 hours a day, because it's the same thing. Being too parasympathetic and too sympathetic, definitely not beneficial. It's finding that balance physiologically. Now, let's go to the sympathetic. When your body's in a stress state, now there's many stressors in everyone's life, and the key is to acknowledge them and learn from them. Not just go, well, you know, I have financial stress, I eat like shit, I have a disease, I'm overweight, on and on and on, and that's just the way it is. And you just keep giving into it, playing the victim, and feeding the need as a human to play that victim. You have to acknowledge these things, because if you don't, that sympathetic state causes, over time, a catabolic effect on the body. And it actually causes a breakdown. It causes things to kind of peter out. And it'll actually cause a dysfunction between, I'm going to kind of give you some big words here, big physiological things that are happening in the body. You'll have a breakdown between the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal, the hypothalamus pituitary thyroid, hypothalamus pituitary gut, and hypothalamus pituitary gonad, which is a hormonal system. You'll have a dysfunction between all those because they're basically connected. So the hypothalamus pituitary in your brain, one signals the other to help to release thyroid hormone, adrenal hormones, or gut hormones, or gonad hormones. It's what Jeffrey Bland calls the HPTA-GG axis, or AT-GG axis, whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is, if there's a stress, all of them are going to be affected. What happens is, you'll see issues with the thyroid. A lot of people start to have hypothyroidism. You see sluggishness in the gut. You'll see people have GI problems. Now, there's a plethora of GI problems. You typically see GI issues. A lot of people start to have infertility problems. You'll see men having low testosterone levels. You see women developing high estrogen levels, PCOS, PMS, on and on and on. And at the same time, you see the body's inability to fight stress and inflammation go down. You'll see fatigue. You're constantly getting cold, constantly getting sick. You'll start to get diseases, on and on and on. Like in one of my YouTube clips, I talked about the 5 stages of disease, or what we call death. Now, the problem is, completely lost my train of thought, but the problem is, when you're in the sympathetic state all the time, one of the things that your body will do is sweat. Sweat, like your body, our bodies are always communicating with us. They're always telling us what's going on. Most people only tune in when we get a symptom. That's the 4th, 5th stage of disease or death. After that, you get disease, and after that, you die. So one of the symptoms of being in a sympathetic state is chronic sweating. Now, what's going to cause the chronic sweating? It could be numerous things. It could be any stress. It could actually be a disease. It could be gout. It could be a thyroid problem, a pituitary problem. On and on and on. But we don't have to focus on the disease. We can rewind it and say, why am I in the sympathetic state all the time? Why is my body wound up? Why is it not coming down to that parasympathetic state, that relaxed state? Why do I feel wired all the time? Why do I feel tired and wired? On and on and on. Well, the key is to first work with a practitioner to figure this out, or look at your diet, look at your lifestyle, look at your sleep, look at your sleep patterns to figure this out. Most people that are over-sweating, hands, feet, you name it, it's because they're always in a sympathetic state. Now, I can generalize and say, well, years ago, when I used to bodybuild, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, I constantly sweat. It didn't matter what time of day, I was just always sweating, and it was really annoying. And I actually figured it out to coffee and caffeine. Now, I cut out the caffeine and I actually drank espresso because espresso has less caffeine than coffee. And once I did that, I lost that jittery effect. I lost the constant sweating effect. And of course, when I was working out or it was hot, I was sweating. But I lost that constant sweating in my hands and feet and in my neck, head area. Caffeine is a huge stimulant of the sympathetic nervous system. And you see most people overdoing caffeine. Now, is it the only reason you're going to have increased sweating? No. There's many reasons. Any type of stress can cause increased sweating. The key is to figure out why. So if you have increased sweating in the hands, the feet, on and on and on, don't get these crazy surgeries to take out the sweat glands or to inhibit the sweat glands. That's absolutely ridiculous and asinine. Your body's always communicating. Listen to it. Get assessed and look at some of the nutritional stressors in your life. The chemical stressors, the physical stressors, the mental emotional stressors, the spiritual stressors, on and on and on. Because those things are what's going to be causing the sympathetic stress and what's going to be causing the wired and tired, the catabolic effects, the blood pressure issues, the blood sugar issues, and the sweating. So it's kind of a big topic because we can't really generalize and say this is why one person has increased sweating. The bottom line is the body is in a sympathetic state. It's in overdrive. The body is heating up, so the body oversweats to cool the system down. It's like your engine overheats. So hopefully you've learned something. Tune in for some more great YouTube clips. Check out our website at eastwesthealing.com. And just keep in mind, don't get your sweat glands taken out. The first thing you want to do is maybe look at your sleep. Maybe look at hydration, the water you're taking in. Look at the quality and the quantity of foods that you're taking in. Maybe work with someone or to start doing some Qigong to work on the mental, emotional aspect of your stresses. But one of the major things I see with people that have increased sweating is the over intake of caffeine in their body. So I'm out of here and I'll check you later.